Hello, everybody. Despite my somewhat confusing definition of a week, this is the next week in 3-bind example solves. Basically, I just wanted to do one for fun, so I'm doing one now. Okay, this first scramble. Okay, so tracing corners. After these first two comms, there's this 2C prime situation. And in edges, because of the binary nature of edges, like these are kind of straightforward to deal with, and you can visual them pretty easily. Here, it's not the case, but you can still approach it with more information than you would for just random targets. So, and eventually, it would be a good idea to start recognizing these cases as 2C primes and being able to recognize the orientation with them and apply that knowledge effectively. Is that something viable to do right now? No, the theory hasn't been developed. And also probably, I don't know how big of a time save it would be, but it's one of those things where it would just help gain an overall intuition of the cube. But yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about recently. And by the way, if you haven't noticed by now, these example solves are not always just for pure example solves. Often it's just to bring out ideas and talk about ideas that I may not normally talk about in isolation. You know, sometimes it's good just to have the context to be able to talk about different ideas and things I've been just thinking about here and there. So after these first two, now practically, where would I go? See, this is one of these things where I just have this weird feeling that if I go here, it's going to result in this one at the end. And so that's what I would do. I mean, this here to here, that's not the best comm ever, but it's also not the worst comm ever. And especially considering it's followed by an 8 mover, that's more than fine. And anyway, pretty much any other comm to from this sticker to any of these things or down here is kind of not the best. So if you're able to force the best one afterwards, then, you know, that's more than enough. So there's no parity. And so for edges, here we reach here, and it's like, that's kind of annoying because there's nowhere great to break. But I think gut instinct would tell me to break here and have this and continue on that way. That's fine. If we're going kind of optimal, you could recognize this color pattern. So recall that throughout this entire series, we've talked about a lot of how to cycle break properly. And so if you hit a cycle break on an even target, as we are now, I guess even and odd are always like very weirdly exchangeable because of like off by 1. But basically, if you have like something and then you hit your buffer on a second and the pair is over, and now you have to choose where to break, you don't really have anything to go with except for just looking at the colors on the cube. So this here is like edge oriented, like R2 away. It's like a common pattern you'll see in different places, and this obviously leads to a good a 7 mover, right? So let's say we go here, just yeah, and then that leads to a good continuation. I guess one more thing to add is that there's also this weird trade-off of if you break to like a D-layer target or something, and it's moving out of focus. If you break to D-layer target, right, and let me think how to say this. Yeah, so if you break the D-layer target and force a fast comm, it's possible that the last comm you have is going to be worse because it's on the D-layer. Let's say you broke to here. That last comm is probably going to be pretty good because on average, comms to this piece, you know, UB or BU are pretty fast. That being said, I've always taken the stance that it's better to force something good now than to take the chance on getting something good later. Because when you force something good now, you have it. That's like you've guaranteed a 7 mover in your exec, which will save a non-negligible amount of time. Okay, so that's edges. That's all to say that we're gonna go to exec. That's pretty straightforward. Here we have this. Now there's some like weird UE stuff going on. Oh, sorry, I don't know if that was all in frame, but there's some weird UE. Anyway, most of that finger tricks was like very standard. So there's UE stuff going on here, right? There's like, actually, you could just Yeah, look, so you can cancel here and do like a U wide. But then that kind of screws up, I don't know about you, but it screws up my muscle memory, because doing this is like such a fundamental part of the muscle memory of that comm. So, I don't know. Whenever there's like, okay, in corners it's like UD cancels, like that's always fine. You could deal with that. But when it's UE or like MU and you have moves that are canceling, that could be kind of hard. So I guess either one, that's something to avoid, or it's two, something to work on. I haven't come to that conclusion yet. This next one here, very straightforward. Very straightforward. Okay, corners. Here we cancel a bunch of moves. Now, how would I see that, right? That's like, I guess a question that sometimes comes up is like, oh, how do you notice cancels? How are you able to do it? Yeah, if it's one move, you can see it pretty easily. But like once you get into the depths of like 2 moves, 3 moves, in my opinion, it becomes much more of a feeling than than like a brain thing. So you're not thinking, oh, this U prime cancels with the U. Like it's not like an FMC solution where you're canceling out moves, right? This is really just a feeling thing. So if I go here, and I'm already thinking about the next comm, I know this is the hand position and like the setups for the next comm. I could go straight into it. By the way, I strongly suggest being able to double flick F2s in that one with your right hand. That's an essential finger trick for 3-blind, and you know a lot of good people don't do it, which is fine, but I think that it's something that's relatively low effort to learn. It takes a day or so of like really just doing it constantly, but once you get that righty double flick, you're good to go. So anyway, so for this, I just get the feeling, you know, you just, by doing comms enough, you understand what's coming up. And if you're thinking into the next one, you'll really, you will have that feeling of like, I can cancel, right? And then we go into, what's nice is like that last move was like a R prime, was it? No, it was a UD. Anyway, you go into this, and then you're in this grip, but this is I guess a part of like what I would call finger trick theory is like, you're always looking to do moves while you regrip a hand, because if I'm regripping and then I do it, that's some time I've lost just by doing this. So if I'm doing this, I can do the U2 while regripping and then go into this. You know, these are small things, but they really add up once you start figuring out everything and figuring how to flow in between comms and everything. So here, and then as I'm doing the U2, you regrip. So that's saving time right there. And then you do this, and then that's okay. But yeah, that was an interesting solve finger trick wise and thought wise, despite it being a fairly ordinary. I think that was a 10 alligator, but I don't really care. Okay, next solve. So this goes back to the color patterns thing I was talking about. Yeah, even if we haven't like hit something on the second target, this is sort of the 0th target, and so we have to break this somewhere. If you look here, first of all, if you know 2 color, you know that's going to be twisted in place. You could also check, maybe you saw it while like picking up the cube this way. So another thing, when you start to solve, this is not nothing. This is not nothing when you're turning it. That's time to gain information about the cube in spots you may not normally see. So especially like DB, that's something you don't really check actively during the solve. Yeah, you can deduce it and stuff, but like it's always good to just have an idea of what's going on. So often you'll see solve pieces or flip pieces. You can't see everything, obviously, because you're going so fast. But let's say I start here and I pick up the cube. I'm seeing this twisted corner while I'm getting into here. Then I know that's twisted and I don't want to break to it. Because I can always do like LTCT and stuff, right? So that's the first way. Maybe I know it's twisted from 2 color. That if you don't know 2 color, okay, well you see yellow and orange. Let's say you can't think fast enough to just see it's a twist away. Let's say that's white. You don't really want to continue on to here because actually I don't know. It's kind of obvious this is yellow, right? If it's white, yeah, I could force like a fast one, but it's not white, so it's yellow. Anyway, this is the color pattern type of thing I'm talking about. This is a very obvious 8 mover that's being set up here. So you take that and you run. So after that, you're there. And then we have this, this is actually, I don't know if I've discussed this before, but it's like a common, when you have LTC, like a parity plus two twists that are in the three twist formation and not the two twist formation. It's an interesting case because you have so many options, right? And so I'll talk about that once I get there in exec. Obviously, I wouldn't decide that right now. You know, in memo, you're really trying to, the way I see memo, if I had to put in one phrase, gain minimal information, the minimal amount of information to solve the cube. This in corners, 1, 2, knowing that's the minimal information, and knowing these two are twisted. Because otherwise, you're not taking advantage of the time you have in exec to think about things. So memo, minimal information needed. So in this case, that's all it is. That's why I like to visual 2E, 2Es in edges and like all this stuff where it's like you can take advantage of time in exec, because time saved in memo is time saved in general. That's time that's going to get taken off the stack mat at the end of your solve. So anyway, here, yeah, I'm not deciding what I want to do yet. We'll get to that. Another interesting case, I did say, like, when there's a two twist that is an isolated two twist, like if it was like this, even if you have a parity target plus a two twist, sometimes it's interesting to do some LTCT stuff, but twists are generally pretty fast. So the general case I would say for that is to do a parity plus a two twist, unless you see something very obvious and very fast that involves an LTCT. So anyway, we're going to go for either UF-UR or UF-UL swap or UF-UB. This is one of those targets that has a lot of flexibility. Here, I do see this. You could do UL-UR and then do some like U'-F-perm thing, but let's be honest, like that's kind of ridiculous. So let's not do that. So let's just try to set up this UF-UL, right? So here, when I reach this, let's say I'm setting up UF-UR, this kind of becomes a garbage target because it's sort of like the pseudo buffer, right? So if I'm swapping UF-UR, this becomes a garbage target and I have to shoot it somewhere else, and like you're wasting targets, right? So what I'll do is I'll shoot here, and that sort of confirms the fact that I'm not going to be using UF-UR because this is solved. The only way I would use UF-UR is if somehow, actually no, because if somehow the last target was like some oriented piece and I had to append it somewhere, I would definitely append it to UL unless it was like very obviously like a S prime way. Anyway, so here, we're gonna go here. Now, this is like sort of the new pseudo buffer that we're thinking about because we want to set up this swap. However, we reach this and this becomes now the garbage target. This, like, we're gonna have to shoot somewhere else. If we reach this and it was flipped and it was oriented, then we could float. But right now, I'm not really in the mood to float this flipped cycle because it's relatively early in the solve. So I don't have an idea of what's going on with the other independent cycles on the cube if I float this. So there could be weird like flip stuff going on. So I'm gonna avoid that. Now I'm gonna lock in. I'm gonna get rid of this UF-UL swap actually by shooting this to where it has to go. Now we're kind of locked into UF-UB, which is a fine case. It's a U'-T'. So now we're kind of locked into UF-UB, and we're going to roll with that, right? And then if I was being really creative, if UB somehow gets taken and I don't want to use a garbage target, then you can go like to FD or something. I don't think I've ever actually done that. But that's just something I keep in mind. So let's continue here, 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 right? Now, this is our new UB, because now we're swapping UF-UB. So everything I'm talking about here is sort of what I consider to be called dynamic pseudo-swapping, where you're not locked into anything at the start of tracing edges, and you try to figure out just ways where you can not really lock in anything. Sometimes you won't actually save analog by doing this, but the times where you do save analog makes it worth it to think this way. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, so we reach here. Now we're going to go to UB and continue on that way. And then, you know, this is slightly annoying, this 2E, 2E prime, 2E prime. But what's nice is you save time in memo because you're visualing it. So I know this is the last target, and I know all I have to know is what sticker this is. And that's enough information to do the solve. So we will be deducing quite a bit in exec, where we have this corner thing going on, and you have this 2c prime. But you just have to trust yourself that you're able to come up with the solutions by just deducing things and applying what you know about cycle structures. So I will explain that once we get to it, but let me just get through this quickly. And as you see here, by avoiding this, like avoiding forcing anything, we end up with two pretty nice columns back to back there. Okay, continuing on here. Right now I reach here. I memorize this sticker. You know, is that the best? And the reason I memorize this one is because I feel like out of these 4 stickers that you can break to, this is probably my favorite to go to. Although if you do this one, it's also pretty fast. But just because this keeps things righty, I like, I do enjoy going here. So if I go here, this is a 2c prime. This is flipped. So I know I have to go, obviously because this sticker's here, I have to go to BD next. But after BD, because this is a flipped 2 cycle, we're gonna have to come back here because it's flipped. So if there's like orientation parity in the cycle, you're gonna have to come back to the opposite of where you started. But let's say this was just a pure 2e, then obviously that becomes easier. You just go here and then like back here and then back here. So that's information you can completely deduce during exec that you don't have to think about during memo. So let me do this, right? And then this one. That's edges. Now corners. It's worth talking about this cancel, I guess. So, you know, you could do something goofy and like be like, oh, I'm gonna use, instead of doing the standard like 9 mover thing here, you could be like, oh, I'm gonna cancel into it and use the 8 mover, or like set up to 8 mover. And I guess that's an interesting thing to do. Let me set that up again. So here, and then we cancel. And that's another cancel where I'm not braining it out. I'm just feeling it. You just feel the cancel coming. So there's that. Or if you wanted to take a bit of a safer route, you know it's going to be, the setup for this is U, and you know it's a U prime away, right? And then like this. Then you do this. And see, I messed it up even. Once you start to get into U2, D2 land and like stuff canceling all over the place, that's when it starts to get worrying. Usually you can do fairly simple things, but something like that, I could probably do it full speed. But if I'm trying to go slow and explain it, yeah, it starts to get a bit confusing in the brain. So yeah, I may have actually gone with this had I done it in a real solve, this 8 mover, but sorry, 10 mover, I don't know. That's the creativity you need. That's the kind of out of the box thinking you need to be doing during exec. You can't be autopiling, right? You have to be open to using like weird comms you normally wouldn't, and that's intuition that really needs to be like built up over time. Starting from day 1 of learning freestyle, you always have to be thinking about how comms work, how all this stuff happens, because you need the flexibility in these solves to be able to do stuff like that, right? But yeah, so now we reach here. I forgot I talked about LTCT. That's a bit embarrassing. I think had I been doing this, I would have maybe locked in this UFUR swap, and then done some sort of thing with the LCC. Anyway, what I want to say about this is that you have like something like 18 options. I don't know. You can do this and then do the 3 twist. So you parity and 3 twist. That's 1. You can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different targets, and then do the LTCT. That's 7 options. You can do an LTCT, 1 or 2 LTCTs, and then do a 2 twist. That's 9 options now. You can like do the wrong LTCT and then like leave the 2 twists there. So that's like a million other options. I think it's sometimes good when you have that many options to be a bit more reductionist in your thinking and just be like, take simple things. So I would consider this LTCT, so like this one, sorry, I will do this. So like you can do this one, right? And then do the twist in the back, and that actually doesn't cancel, but it leads nicely into the next twist. You can also do let me see if I remember this one. Yeah. So this LTCT and then do that twist. And you know, those are, and then do parity. That's a parity and then 3 twists. That's another option you can have. So yeah, maybe those 3 options are the good things to keep in mind, because otherwise they're just too much to think about, and that in itself, thinking about too much, will make you lose time. So here it's actually fine that I kind of did this, and I would just do the 3 twist, right? You know, I don't know, somebody in the comments maybe be like, oh my god, well, you just wasted an alg by doing that edge thing, and you're probably right, but because I consider 3 twists to kind of be 2 algs, so that would have been, I would have saved an alg with LTCT. But it's not the worst thing, you know. And this is not a solve where you get like a 12 on it. So also sometimes it's just fine to just take the L, and especially on more difficult scrambles, like that one where you're like hitting pseudo buffers that are flipped and like it's all over the place. Sometimes it's okay just to find a decent enough solution and just take the whatever you global, 15 or 16, you know, or 14 if you're one of 2 people in the world, right? So this last scramble, let me try not to do anything stupid on this one. Corners are pretty straightforward. You can trace for yourself. Now, when you have this last target, you can either do this one, these 2, or these 2. And the alg for the other one is pretty straightforward. It's like this. And obviously, don't do it like an idiot like me. And then edges. Yeah, edges, nothing really special, except once you hit this, you have a floating cycle. So I would do this floating cycle right away. Right. Now continue on to here. That could have been canceled when you think about this again. Yeah, that could have been canceled. Next. Sorry, this is annoying. Those edges were like very, very basic, except for that float. Maybe there's not too much to talk about here. We'll see. We'll see in edges. Okay, so here. This is interesting. I don't know. Maybe corner-wise is that you have, after this comm, you have to do a U prime and then a U prime again. So yeah, that you can cancel that obviously. But like what you don't want to do first of all is do a U prime like this and then shift back down and then do another U prime. That's stupid. You don't want to do like this and then a U2, although that's better than the other one. What you can actually do, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is while you're in this grip, do the U2 while you're regripping down. Saves time. Next one. I think I did something dumb. Oh yeah, this. Okay. All right. Okay. So when you have this one, I usually do like U R prime D2. If you do U prime R prime D2, it gives you. I consider this like almost 100% functionally equivalent in terms of finger tricks. Whether you do this or you do this. Oh wait, sorry. Or you do this. There's no real speed difference to me. Sorry. Oh my god, I'm out of the frame constantly. Yeah, whether you do this with the U prime first, or whether you do the U first, it's pretty much the same thing. And so you can often use that to your advantage to cancel. Here I had the U2, and like I may not want to do this U after. Although, here's the thing, the U does cancel pretty nicely into the parity alg. So it's not bad if I do that. And sometimes you will kind of have these miracles. But, as I talked about, I think in the second solve, or the first solve, it's always better to force something fast. Take this like time gain that you can get, instead of like being like, oh, it might cancel something later. Here it worked out, and sometimes it'll work out in those ways, but I don't know, sometimes it's good just to take the time save and not worry about the future. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna try to start at the end of these videos like recapping main ideas. One is what I just talked about, taking W's early instead of hoping for W's later. That oddly applies to life as well, although not always. In queuing, it applies. That's all that matters. Two, time saved in exec versus time saved in memo. You always want to be memoing to try to get the least amount of information possible to do the solve. And that ties into things like deducing or LTCT plus 2 twists or other things like that, right? Regripping while doing other moves, even though I probably talked about this like for hours and hours and hours on end in other videos, because it's just so fundamental to high level finger trick theory, right? Anything else? Being open with pseudo swaps, and also, was there a fifth thing? I don't know. I'm just trying to think about all the things I talked about in the solves. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I guess the fifth thing that's like a very important takeaway is like feel-based cancellation, I'll call it, where you're not canceling with your brain, you're canceling with your hands and your muscle memory. And that I don't know about these Max Hilliard, all these like other guys, Tommy. In terms of canceling, it's always feel-based for me. I will never cancel by using my brain and like calculating U2's mod 4 or like random stuff like that, right? I will always do it based on feel, and if there's something I can't feel in the moment, because sometimes if you're thinking about like I don't know a step forward in the solve, if you're thinking a step forward, you can feel I don't know, you just feel the moves you have to do next, right? And so if I'm not feeling that in edges, or edges or corners, whatever, if I'm doing the solve and I'm not feeling the moves that I have to do next in my hands to cancel, I will not do the cancel. And that is arguably time saving in itself, because it's all about this massive flow. And yeah, if you can cancel moves and with the feeling and keep this massive flow going, yeah, hell yeah. But like, don't want to sacrifice that massive flow to try and attempt to do this like theoretical time save thing. So canceling is all about like you have to be able to do it in time and on the go. So I don't know, those are 5 key takeaways from this video and these solves. And yeah, I'll see you guys at some point. Maybe I'll do one of these next week. I don't know. I kind of just like doing them when I feel like doing them, when I feel like talking, when I feel like rambling, because that's when the ideas come out. I don't want to force these out because otherwise, I don't know, it's kind of useless. But I do hope that these serve as good documentation, if not low effort documentation, into just how like top blind solving stuff works, right? Because if we don't document these things in some way, they will. I feel like there's going to be a lot of information lost just due to time, and this doesn't necessarily mean making super in-depth videos about everything. Sometimes it's just good to turn on the camera for 30 minutes and ramble about solves and talk about different ideas that come up. So that's the idea behind all these example solves. Anyway, that was a really long video. I apologize if I made you sit through all of this, but hopefully you learned something. And if you're watching this in like 2050, I hope this serves as like good historical reference or something. I don't know. Anyway, that was like a really weird rant, but yeah, thanks for watching.